Well, it is amazing to be here, and in 25 days, we're going to turn Pennsylvania red and take the whole country with us. Make Donald Trump the next president. And I know we're going to have a conversation with Sage here in just a second, but I want to say, and if you've got your phone, write this down, remember it, swampthevoteusa.com. That is what we're trying to hammer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania today, because look, I talked to 100 people in 2020 who planned to vote for Donald Trump, and 95 of them did. And the 5 that didn't change their mind. It's that something happened on Election Day. They waited till the very end. They had to stay late at work. A kid got sick. They had to take their kid to the doctor. We've got to get out and make our voices heard, because if we do, we're going to win this state, my friends, and we're going to make Donald Trump the next president. And by the way, how great is to have Sage with us here? So, let's have a conversation, right?
Are you ready, Pennsylvania?
There we go.
Let's go. The coolest thing about JD Vance, I mean, there's many cool things, right? Your kids still like you. They're young.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
My oldest is 7. If they didn't like me, we'd be in deep shit.
Exactly. Hang on to this phase because it changes quickly. But to me, is this normal, JD?
No. Yeah. I mean, if you get
special.
If you look behind, you can see Trump Force 2, of course, and it's the craziest thing to have your name on the side of an airplane. I will say, the craziest thing, and you guys can see our great Secret Service agents. They're doing a great job. We're very grateful for them. I'm proud of them. But it's funny, the Secret Service, because I don't drive anymore, right? They drive me around everywhere. And I love these guys. I say this with all admiration for them, but they drive very slowly, right? I'm sort of a lead foot guy. Now, I tell you that, and what you don't know is that about a week ago, they took me to their training facility, and they took me on their tactical driving course. And as I'm getting in the car, Dave over here, the lead agent, says, sir, how you always make fun of us for driving like Miss Daisy? And I said, yes, I do remember that. He said, well, strap yourself in. So they got their revenge. I'm never going back to that course, though. No more revenge after this.
Really?
Yeah, but it's good. We're having a great time. We got 25 days to go. Enthusiasm is off the charts, and this is just so. This is so cool.
Have you gotten used to this, where literally everywhere you go, you have thousands of people chanting your name?
Yeah, it's awesome. But no, impossible to get used to this. I pinch myself every day. It's so much fun. But the way I'd put it is, other than marrying my lovely wife and being a father to our 3 kids, this is the biggest honor of my life. I grew up in my grandmother raised me. Sometimes things were really tight. Sometimes we were very poor. And here I am asking to be the vice president of the United States. What a great country this is. And what a great testament it is.
It truly is. I was going to say the American dream, but was it even a dream? This is one of those things that do you even think of when you're high school, college, right?
No, unless you're a crazy person, maybe you think about it when you're when you're in high school. But look, I really, when I thought about the American dream, what I wanted was to be able to give my kids the things that I didn't have, right? I remember, being a kid and being really worried that, you give somebody your address, but you're not sure if you're going to live there 6 months later. And that really bothered me. Sometimes you're really worried about whether your mom or your grandmother's going to be able to afford the things that are necessary. To me, the American dream was just being a good husband, a good father, and being able to, look to the future with a bit of optimism. And when I think about the American dream, I think it probably means 100 different things to 100 different people. But I think the unifying thread is we just all want to be able to give our kids and our grandkids a better life maybe than we had. And that is, I think, where we're failing the most, right? Unfortunately, only 2 people get to run for vice president every 4 years. That's not going to happen to everybody. But I think that you want to live in a country where kids can dream big dreams and be realistic about it. And that's what the American dream is fundamentally about. And look, I worry that, when I talk to people, we have the most generous and greatest people anywhere in the world. I really do. The past 8 weeks have taught me a love of this country because you see it. I mean, you should come on the plane with us, seriously.
Did you just hear him invite me on the plane?
I did. But you see the country from a totally different perspective because, people are very anxious about what's going on, but they're excited to talk to you about what's going on in their lives, what, the business that they're building or, what their grandkids are up to or what they're struggling with. And it just gives you an unbelievable perspective on what a great country that we have. And especially, you mentioned my kids, right? The cool thing about running for VP as opposed to the Senate is you run for the Senate and you ride around in like the back of my staff members use Subaru, right? You run for VP, you ride around in that thing. That's pretty cool. But like we bring our kids with us all the time. And you need me, my wife. My wife is with our kids right now. But usually, we'll at least have one family member with us. And you just see this country from a totally different perspective. And it's an amazing thing. And I think that, sometimes we get so frustrated, and rightfully so, with Kamala Harris and the broken leadership in Washington. We can't ever let... I agree. We can't let that frustration, I think, make us forget that we still have the greatest country in the world, and we're going to fix that broken leadership in 25 days.
And I think it's been... It has been incredible to see the spirit of America over the last 2.5 weeks with the storms hitting the two hurricanes, and with the devastation and the issues and drama surrounding that which is so necessary in the minds of many. I have noticed the American spirit living in Florida and watching the news, and there's so much more good here than not.
Yes.
And I think the people of Pennsylvania really are the definition. Good people who love their country, who aren't afraid to work hard, which is exactly why this dream, I guess, is really right here.
That's right.
With you right now. And on that note, let's get started because I want everyone here to have an opportunity to ask these questions.
Of course.
And this thing, I said it at the beginning, this is a little bit different because Kamala Harris and company, I guess she has a running mate, right? Yeah. Are choosing not to do this kind of a format, a true live town hall format that is not run by the networks. That is run by you. On that note, let's get started. We have a couple of questions from the audience. The first question, and I don't know where to look for him, but his name is Michael with a microphone somewhere. Yes, Michael, where are you? There he is.
Good evening. My name is Michael, and I'm from right here in Reading. Owning a home is at the heart of the American dream, yet many people feel that homeownership is unattainable, especially younger Americans such as myself. What are some steps you'll take to tackle this issue?
Yeah, well, great question, Michael. And look, I appreciate the fact that you want to own a home because you're right. It is a big part of the American dream, I think, for a lot of families, certainly for me. And there are a couple of things that we have to appreciate that have gone wrong over the last 3.5 years, because I think in Pennsylvania, the number is about 55% that home prices have gone up just in 3.5 years. And of course, rent has skyrocketed. And there are a couple of different ways to think about that, right? So first of all, you're going to ask yourself, how do you lower the cost of building a home? Okay. And there are two big things you can do there. Number one is you can, as President Trump says, drill, baby, drill, because we drive down the cost of energy. And you think about it, the truck driver who's delivering the lumber and the building materials to the building site, well, if he's paying or she's paying 45% more for gasoline or for diesel, then you're paying more for a home, right? So that's one of the big drivers. And then the second thing is you've got to end the ridiculous regulations that make it hard to build things. I mean, we're in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of the proudest building and manufacturing states in the entire country. We make great things in the United States of America, especially in Pennsylvania. But between permitting and environmental regulations that have nothing to do with clean air and clean water, but are just about giving a bureaucrat a job, we have made it way too hard to build in this country. We are going to make it easier to build more homes for American citizens. And that leads me to the final point. It doesn't just matter that you get more homes, and that matters, but you got to make sure that American homes go to American citizens, people who have the right to be here in the first place. And I've got nothing against any person who wants to come here and build a better life. Of course they want to, because it's the United States of America. But when Kamala Harris lets in 25 million illegal aliens, you've got to house those folks somewhere. And that means American homes are not going to American citizens, and that is driving up the cost of housing. It is no coincidence that the very moment Kamala Harris started to flood the country with millions upon millions of illegal immigrants, housing prices shot through the roof. And the media doesn't like to talk about this, and Kamala Harris sure as heck doesn't like to talk about it. But unless we have American homes going to American citizens, we are never going to make the American dream of homeownership affordable. Donald Trump and I are going to make sure that our homes go to our people, and that's going to make it easier for you to afford a home. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a very appropriate first question, right? Because we're talking about dreams, and that is everybody's dream. And for the last 2 years, it has seemingly been unattainable, and I think we all know why. I did want to point this out. J.D. Vance has no idea what these questions are, what the topics are. No idea. We didn't tell him beforehand. There's nobody in his ear, no cute earrings. There's nothing like that. Nope. So I'm just reminding everybody that this is all organic, okay?
I left my Bluetooth earrings at home, so...
All right. Next question. Keep them coming from Lee.
Good evening. I'm Lee from Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, and I'm a retired state trooper. My question is about something that many noted. My question is about something that many voters are thinking about as we prepare to go vote. How can we be assured that we can trust our elections will be safe and free from fraud?
So Lee, another great question. Thank you for your service. God bless our men and women in blue who keep us safe every single day. We're very grateful for you. So let me answer this in a couple of different ways. And the first thing, I want to assure you that though we're not getting everything perfect, and I would never say that we are, I think we're doing way better as a Republican Party on election integrity this year than we were 4 years ago. So get out there and vote. Know we're working hard on it, and we're fighting every single day to make sure that every legal ballot, but only the legal ballots count, right? That's important. We're going to protect people's right to vote. You know, we're doing a lot to make sure that happens. And a lot of this stuff doesn't make headlines, Lee, but it's little lawsuits that the RNC is filing now that they weren't filing 4 years ago. Things like making sure that our voter rolls only have American citizens. Things like, of course, we're proud, by the way, to have the support of Bobby Kennedy, right? We're excited about that. But the Democrats have been fighting to make sure that Bobby Kennedy stays on the ballot. And for example, in North Carolina, Bobby Kennedy will not be on the ballot because of the efforts of the Republican National Committee. Things like what kind of signature verification do we have to do for those mail-in ballots? We want to make sure that, again, the legal ballots count, but we want to make sure that we're following proper procedures. And the RNC's filed over 100 lawsuits just in the last few months to make sure that every legal ballot counts. We're fighting for it every single day. Now, that doesn't mean, Lee, and to all of you, I know we all care about this issue. That doesn't mean, of course, they're not going to change things or try to pull something in 24 that they didn't pull in 2020. Let me just take a totally random example off the top of my head. Let's say about a month before the Democratic National Convention, they switched out one candidate for another candidate. Maybe they'll try to do that. A candidate who, by the way, got 0 votes compared to Joe Biden's 4. But that is, to me, that is what they're going to try to pull this time. We've already seen it. Now, that does, again, they may try to pull some more things over the next few weeks, but think about what that meant is when you take a candidate that everybody knows, Joe Biden, love him or hate him, everybody had an opinion on Joe Biden, just like everybody has an opinion on Donald Trump, and you replace that person with a relatively unknown candidate just a couple of months before the election, that is a fundamental, in my view, threat to democracy, because that person... agree or disagree with Joe Biden or agree or disagree with Barack Obama. And I'm sure we've got a lot of policy disagreements with both those gentlemen. They at least earned the right to represent the Democratic Party, which is something Kamala Harris never did. So and the final point I'll make on this, Lee, is, you know how you make sure that we win in 2024? We make sure that we, and you've heard this term before, swamp the vote. All right. And that's why I point people to this website, swampthevoteusa.com. Check your registration, because if we overwhelm this system with as many votes as possible, we are going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States, and we're going to save the country.
Can I share a quick story with you? This happened
Please.
6 days ago. I just moved to the great free state of Florida.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Literally 3 weeks ago. I'm in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, great.
I'm in Broward County.
Okay.
Which is
family okay with the storm?
yes, sir.
Good.
Everybody's good. And a lot of friends are not, though, so we need to continue to support and donate to the right places,
Absolutely.
which are on the Florida websites, et cetera.
Yep.
I did want to share this, though, because even in a state that has now turned red the last election, disturbing. Last week, I'm in Broward County, which is a blue county, and I went to register to vote as a Floridian. And I called ahead, and I also looked on the website, and I brought all of the documentation, the car registration, proof of residency, driver's license, passport. I walked in. She said, "There you go. Fill it out." I filled out the form and handed it to her, and she said, "Okay, thanks." And I said,
That worries me.
"Yeah." I said, "Don't you want to check my proof of residency? Do you want to check my driver's license?" She said, "No, you signed it. I'm sure it's the truth." So this is in a state that we trust. My point is, to your point, we can't settle. We have to absolutely make sure, because even when you're trying as citizens to do it the right way, I brought it all and I said, no, ma'am, please check my
When you have 22 people registering at one address, and that address happens to be a Walmart, then you need the RNC to go in and challenge those ballots as they come in, right? And so we are at least doing that in some of these states, but I want to follow up. You said it's Broward County.
Broward County.
Okay, so let me check on that. The last point that I'll make here is, it looks like we had maybe somebody. Sir, we love you. Let's give a round of applause. It looks like he's on his own feet, but
Fortunately, he's walking with some assistance. Yeah.
Well, God bless you, sir. I'm sorry to miss the rest of the program, but it looks like he's doing okay, so that's a good thing. All right. There's a lot more that we can do, but we are actually tracking some of this registration stuff to make sure that it's going in the right direction. And again, with all acknowledgement that nothing's ever going to be perfect, you look at our registration numbers in Florida and in Pennsylvania. Guys, we are knocking it out of the park right now. I mean, things are moving in the right direction, and that's a very, very good thing. So I say that not to say that we've got it all figured out, because we've got to work hard on it. Knock on wood. I say that because we're winning this election. We really are. We just got to keep working at it.
And, I hesitate to bring it up, to talk about it sometimes, but I almost consider it like see something, say something. That's not right.
Yes.
And so we have to do our part. But if we see things like that are or are not happening properly, isn't it our responsibility to report it and try to get this as close as possible?
That's exactly right. And actually, so just a few days ago, I did a call with a lot of our poll workers. Some of you may have even been on that call, because one of the best ways to help out, obviously register to vote is the most important thing, voting most important thing. But if you've got extra time, I think it's something like 60,000 poll workers all across the country. But again, not just the poll watchers, but we've also got the legal support, so that if, for example, they show up in a precinct and the local precinct lead is a Democrat who says you have no right to be here, then we can go in and say, no, actually, you do have the right to be there. You do have the right to watch. So there are a lot of things that we could be doing. The poll watching is really important, because to your point, see something, say something is the right principle, but it's going to take tens of thousands of us working together, it's not going to happen by accident.
And I will say, once again, the RNC has done an incredible job and invested millions of dollars to try their best to make sure we have, I said we, right? Attorneys really stationed throughout the country at these different polling places. And so I think it already feels much different than it did 4 years ago.
No, it really is. And I will say, giving a lot of credit to Chairman Michael Whatley here, who's the head of the RNC. So ask yourself, why is Michael Whatley the head of the RNC? And there are a whole host of reasons. But one of them is you got to ask yourself, which states had pretty good, not perfect, but pretty good elections in 2020 and 2022. And I would actually pick 2 states. My home state of Ohio, we did things very well, a great credit to our local leadership, and also the state of North Carolina, which is a little tighter. It's more of a purple state than a red state, but they did their elections extremely well, and that's in part because of Michael Whatley's leadership. So part of what we asked them to do was, hey, take what you did in North Carolina and make it work for the whole country. And I think that's what we're working to try to do.
25 more days.
That's right.
Next question. Where is my friend Julia? Julia, there she is. Hi.
Hey.
Hello, Senator Vance. My name is Julia, and I have a chemistry and engineering background. And my biggest concern is about how we stay competitive, especially with China. The U.S. went from building 5% of the world's commercial ships in the 1970s, many in Philadelphia, to building about 0.2% today.
Wow.
Most of which has gone to China. How do we get these good-paying jobs back so we can build our ships in America?
Thank you, Julie. Great question. And is it Julie or Julia? Julia. Well, thank you, Julia, for that question. You sort of hit the nail on the head. And I think the whole reason that President Trump ran in 2016 and the reason, like the thing that I most worry about when I wake up is protecting America's manufacturing sector. And I'll throw another statistic at you, which is that we still have the biggest economy in the world, thank God. But one of the things that is true is that if you look at manufacturing GDP, the Chinese are 32% of it and we're 18% of it, okay? And what that means is on the critical things that you need to make, ships, pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we put into the bodies of our children, the Chinese have a huge advantage over us. And we got to wake up and we have to fight back against that. Now, there are a couple of different things that we can do. And number one is actually pretty easy. We just have to have bad leadership to stop screwing this up, because you ask, what is one of the major costs of manufacturing anything, whether it's shipping or something else? It's energy. And we're in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're sitting on the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We just got to unleash that. And now that will lower costs, of course, for everybody, because all of us use energy and we all use things that are made out of energy, but it also make it easier to manufacture in the United States of America. Because you mentioned, I think it was commercial ships, right? Where we used to be 5%, now we're 0.2%. But of course, God forbid, let's say we get into a war with China, and I certainly hope that doesn't happen, but those commercial ships are going to start building warships very, very quickly. And this is the secret of why did we win the Second World War? Well, of course, we had the bravest people and we had the best troops, but we had the world's industrial might. No one could compete with America's manufacturing sector, and that's what we got to get back, or we're going to lose the next major war. That's what has to change. And I want to answer with something else too, because President Trump, I think, really changed the national conversation about this. And of course, the media doesn't give him enough credit here, but we have to ask ourselves, okay, America has a lot of advantages. I think we got the best workers. We have great energy. We've got the best markets anywhere in the world. People want to buy and sell in the United States of America. But here's something, let's be honest. The one thing that the Chinese have an advantage over the United States, and I don't think it's an advantage they should be proud of, it's that they are willing to use slave laborers. In America, we want middle-class wages for middle-class work. We're not going to accept slave labor. So, ask yourself, okay, let's say the Chinese have a literal, and I'm not criticizing these poor people. Some of them are literally being used as slaves by the Communist Chinese Party. Let's say they can get labor for $3 a day, but we want a middle-class American to make $25, $30 an hour. because we, of course, want our people to be able to get good wages. We want them to be able to support a family on their income. We don't want them to be paupers in their own country. So how do we compete with, if the Chinese are paying slaves $3 a day and an American worker is earning 100 times that, which they should? The answer is tariffs. The only way. Because here's what a tariff does. A tariff says, if you're going to make that product using slave labor in China, then we're not letting it come back into our country unless you pay a big fat penalty. That's what a tariff is. And when Kamala Harris goes against tariffs, and she attacks tariffs all the time, what she's effectively saying is, we're going to let slave laborers build products and then bring it into our country, undercutting the jobs and the industries of America. We've got to cut that crap out, protect our businesses, but most of all, protect American working men and women. We got to make more stuff in America. That is what Donald Trump will do. Thank you.
It is truly, whenever I've heard her talk about it and just witness things, it is truly anti-American.
It is.
And I think that's what we need to remember. Like, sometimes I say, why? I don't understand it. It is, the reason doesn't matter. It's anti-American and it must stop. The question is, not if, but when you get in office,
that's right.
How can you and Mr. Trump, how quickly, realistically, can you start to turn that around and bring jobs back from China?
You know, some of this stuff is going to happen very quickly, and some of it's going to take longer. And, you know, I think it's important for political leaders to level with the American people, because, you know, the American manufacturing sector was destroyed is overstating it, but it was harmed over 40 years, okay? It's not going to happen overnight. But if you just look at what President Trump was able to do in 4 years, right? So there's all the stuff that we talk about. There's rising take-home pay, the fastest in 40 years. There's 1.5% inflation. It's always funny, you know, Kamala will say, well, if Donald Trump gets his way on tariffs, then, you know, inflation's going to go through the roof. It's like, first of all, the inflation is going through the roof because of what you've done. Donald Trump imposed tariffs and inflation was at 1.5%. It doesn't make any sense. But I think that a lot of this stuff can happen very quickly, because energy, I mean, look, we are sitting on a gold mine. Drill, baby, drill, right? We are sitting on a gold mine that can be unleashed very, very quickly. You know, you already saw a lot of investment that was starting to come back into our country when Trump was president, but you can do a lot more. Sometimes you don't even have to do the tariff. You just have to threaten it, right? And that's what President Trump understood about this more than anybody, because he is a business guy, is you got to be willing to use your leverage in a negotiation. You can't go into a negotiation with China and say, oh yeah, fine, you know, we welcome all of your, you know, built by literal slaves products, because then they're going to take advantage of you. You need to be willing to fight back and to push back and to stand up for American workers. That's what we're going to do. It's going to happen some quickly, some it's going to take a few more years.
And I think as Americans and as citizens, I found myself paying more attention. When I go on Amazon to buy something, you can look and see where it's manufactured.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's where we have responsibility as well, to do a little bit more homework and say, you know what? Okay, maybe this isn't the exact color I want, or it's a little bit more for now. But if it's made here, that's the only way to begin that process.
Well, and here's another important point. Like, we should have learned the hard way 4 years ago during the height of COVID, when all the supply chains were breaking down, that we've got to have more self-reliance. I mean, think about this. Okay, so this happened to me about a year ago. You know, I've got 3 little kids. As you know, little kids get sick all the time, right? So I take my kid to the CVS that's, you know, a mile down the road from our house in Cincinnati. And it's like, okay, this is the prescription for an ear infection that's for my 3-year-old. He's now 4. It's like, oh, well, we don't have that one. So you call the doctor and you get a second prescription. Well, we don't have that one either. Then you get a third, and finally it's the 4th prescription. Think about this. Our country invented the mass commercialization, the mass availability of antibiotics. And now our own children sometimes have to go down the list to the 4th prescription because we don't make enough of our own stuff. So what we should have learned over COVID was not to mask toddlers or to fire nurses because they don't want to take a shot. The real lesson... or other professionals, not to be too on the nose, but what we should have learned from COVID is we need to be more self-reliant. We can't rely on countries that hate us to make our stuff.
That gives me.
But we didn't learn that lesson.
Oh, he's got the fight t-shirt on.
That's right. Yeah.
Very nice.
This is a good guy here.
So cool.
Did we have an open bar before I got here? Is that what's going on?
We can create one after, right? Tell me where to go after this, Reading, Pennsylvania. Okay, let's... The bar's over there. Oh, look, she's inviting...
The bar's over here. All right, sounds good.
Be right over. I'm not picky. Next question. I should have asked how to pronounce it. Lazaro, help us. When you come to the mic, tell me how to pronounce it properly. There he is. How do you say your name? Lazaro. Thank you.
Hi, Senator Vance.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. So I'm from Shillington, Pennsylvania. I'm concerned about what's going on in the world today. My son, like you, served in the United States Marine Corps.
Here. Thank you, and thank him.
My parents escaped communism and came to America for freedom. How will you and President Trump help us protect us from the spread of communism?
Good question. Cool. So first, Lazaro. Okay, Lazaro. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your son's service. And it's one of these things that's interesting. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when I talk to people who are really concerned about communism and really concerned about socialism, it's two groups of people that are really concerned about it. It's one, typically older Americans who remember the threat of the Soviet Union. And then it's also a lot of recent legal, of course, but recent legal immigrants who came from countries with communism. The people who experience communism, they know that it's something that we got to push back on and push back against aggressively. And there's too much, I think there's too much willingness to sort of wave this away and say, it's not really communism. And then, you've got the leading presidential candidate who doesn't want to lower grocery prices, which are up by 25%, by the way, by unleashing American workers and American businesses and American farmers, but wants to do price controls, right? We should be scared of price controls. This is something that's actually been tried before, and what it leads to is scarcity. It leads to you not being able to buy flour or bread or apples at the grocery store. That's not what I want. I want to lower prices by unleashing America's farmers, making more food and getting it to the people that need it, right? That's how you lower the cost of food, not by price controls. And so, sir, I think one of the big things that we have to do and recognize is that the reason why people aren't as worried about the rise of socialism, whether it's overseas or whether it's here at home, is that our education system has gotten totally broken. And this is something we've got to fix back on. This goes back to Julia's question a little bit earlier. I mean, look, 40 years ago, American public education was the marvel of the world. We led in reading, we led in mathematics, we led in language arts. And that was what was so cool about it, is that whether you were rich or poor or black or white, you got a good education in the United States of America. We believed that was the birthright of every one of our citizens. Well, now you've got American children. They might, be able to say that there are 87 genders, but they can't add 2 plus 2, right? And we've injected so much progressive politics into our education system that it's not just, I think a lot of this stuff is crazy, and I imagine a lot of you think it's crazy too. I don't think there are 87 genders. I think that's totally bogus. But it's not just that that's bogus, it's that it distracts from teaching kids the core things that they need to know. And one of sir, one of the things I think American children need to know is that there is an alternative system out there called socialism that leads to death and poverty, right? That's one of the most important civic, pieces of education that we can give our kids, is to teach them, why has America been so prosperous over 250 years? It's not perfect, of course. We haven't always gotten things right, but we've done a hell of a lot better by hewing to basic fundamental principles. And a lot of these countries have completely gone off the rails. I mean, literal starvation in places like Venezuela because they haven't followed the same ideas that we have. And I think that's something that we have to fix at the root cause of education, because if we keep on teaching young American leaders that socialism is okay, then eventually we're going to make a bad mistake in this country. Frankly, I fear that we're going to do it unless we elect Donald Trump on November 5th. So another reason to get out there and vote. I just saw this beautiful baby. How old is she? Like 9 months. Oh, she's beautiful. What's her name?
Start them young, right? Start them young.
Evelyn Liberty. Give it up for Evelyn Liberty. Oh.
But I mean, JD, doesn't that make you think about a number 4?
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
Keep going.
Yeah. Talk to my wife about that.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
You want to drop right into a marital conversation. That's I want to have a 4th baby. Usha's maybe. We'll see.
A reminder: we are in control of all of that. Yes.
What she says is not even talking about it till November 5th. That's what she says. So
She's smart.
let's win this election first.
First things first. Real quick follow up to what you said. One of the beauties of Florida is the diversity, and so many people who come over here legally as immigrants and proudly. And I talk to them quite often in Ubers. It's amazing how the conversations begin there. And there was a young man today from Cuba, many from Venezuela, and they bring it up and they say it all the time. Americans don't understand. They don't understand what's at stake and what's on the line because to your point, they've never felt it. They've never lived it. And of course, it's not going to be talked about in the mainstream media. So it does go back to education. The problem there is then we have unions and we have tenure. You got to blow that whole thing up. But how realistic is that?
Look, I think it is realistic because people have recognized that our education system is failing our kids. So, and it's funny, it's often public school teachers who know the most about how corrupted it's become. Because they don't want to be teaching all this crazy stuff. They want to be teaching kids reading, writing, American history. And I mean, this is one of the reasons, I know this is a big issue in the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is we've got to do school choice to give parents ownership over their kids' education. And there's also, there's something here, which I think, look, we're Republicans. We typically believe the government should be smaller. We don't want the government in our bedrooms. We don't want it controlling our lives. But there are things that the government needs to do and needs to do well. Like it needs to do immigration enforcement, and it needs to do it well. When the government is in, this is, of course, local government, but when the local government is educating our kids, we want them to do it well. And this is competent government. We've got to get back to that, right? Smart people running the government and making sure it does its job. Yes, we want it smaller, but when it's doing something, we want it to do it well.
We're not asking for that much, are we?
Right.
Apparently.
Yeah, we figured it out. I mean, look, we apparently had education figured out pretty well 40 years ago, and it's by getting away from some basic truths that we've screwed it up.
And once again, to all those teachers in the audience, besides Julia, yes, thank you. Thank you. It is a thankless job quite often between the teachers, the first responders, our military servicemen and women, the medical professions, all of these people. Of course, we all were affected so greatly by COVID, but
of course,
I mean, you are on the front lines, and I thank you for the patience with my 3 kids in particular,
yes,
and in general, because it is a tough job, and we love you for it.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Keep it going. Where is Gwyneth? Another question. It is from Gwyneth, right here in the front.
Senator Vance, thank you for being here tonight and taking questions from voters. My name is Gwyneth, and I'm concerned about the federal government's overreach, especially the Department of Justice and the FBI. How will you and President Trump help control the out-of-control federal government?
Hear, hear. That is a very big question, and here's the simple principle that's going to guide President Trump and I when it comes to the administration of justice: equal justice under law. It's very simple. We don't go after people. You don't go after people because they disagree with you. You don't try to throw a pro-life father of 7 in prison because he dared to protest. You don't throw a parent. You don't have the FBI go after them at a school board meeting because they showed up to peacefully do what parents ought to do, which is to speak up on behalf of their kids. That's the fundamental principle. I think the question is then, how do you apply that principle in practice? Here's one thing that I'll say. The most important job, this is a bit of a hit to my ego, but the most important job after President of the United States in the next administration, it's not me, it's who we select as Attorney General. You need an Attorney General who believes in true equal justice under law. And look, I think we've got a lot of good candidates. It's one of the reasons why, by the way, we want to get Dave McCormick elected senator from the state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is because when we make that nomination, when President Trump nominates an attorney general, we want to make sure that person can get confirmed, right? And that's a really important part. But here's what you then have to do. Because let's be honest, Merrick Garland, I think, is one of the most corrupt AGs we've ever had in this country. But it's not just Merrick Garland, right? There are some people that clearly report to Merrick Garland. I actually this conversation probably about a year ago with a field officer in the FBI, and he came up to me and he said, "Look, sir, we're trying to do the right thing. You've got a lot of great law enforcement people at the FBI, but he's like, the leadership of our agency is so broken that you've got to clean house, and that's what we're going to do. We are going to." When we say drain the swamp, I mean, look, just go back a few years ago. You had the entire government. You had an impeachment, a fake impeachment that was completely oriented around the idea that Donald Trump was in bed with a foreign government. We all remember that, the Russia scam, okay? That scam was a complete lie. And even the independent Justice Department investigator basically said this is all completely made up. But here's the problem. They admit that it was made up. They admit that it distracted this country. It led to a fake impeachment. How many people have been fired from that? 0. And here's what President Trump and I are going to do when we get in there. We're going to fire the people who are responsible for the corruption of our Department of Justice. That's what we've got to do. And if you're not willing to do that, then you have no business running this country. Luckily, we've got a guy in Donald Trump who is.
So can you record it so we can see what it looks like when you fire them? And is it that you're fired? Is it a pink slip? What does this look like?
He does actually like to do that. He does. I mean, look, one of the reasons he's one of the more famous people in the world is because he got famous firing people. And it's funny, that's the kind of person you actually want cleaning house in Washington, D.C. Because, Sage, go back to the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, okay? And, it's so sad. Because these are, young people at the prime of their life. They're the very best of us. They put on the uniform, and of course, 13 of them lost their lives. And I've talked to a lot of the families, the moms and the dads, the sisters of these beautiful young Americans. And you know what they'll tell you? They're not even of course they're sad, but they're not angry that they lost their loved ones. What they're angry about is the lack of accountability that happened afterwards. And we have to ask ourselves, and I had to fact check this because I couldn't believe it. How many in the Department of Defense bureaucracy, senior leadership, how many people got fired after that disastrous withdrawal? 0. To people, especially those watching at home, who just want their government to function and work properly, you can't do that unless you're willing to fire the people who screw up. And that is what I think President Trump will do. As you said, Sage, he really likes to do the "you're fired" thing. And, maybe we can even turn a TV show into it, right? We'll just bring in the most corrupt people in the federal government and we'll let Donald Trump do his thing. We'll clean house and we'll make the people's government work for the people again.
It would be great on social media. Hashtag BTS behind the scenes. Take us back there to see it. The A word. And you know what? Hey, accountability. As a parent,
Yes.
You're not going to have normal kids, good human beings, young adults without accountability. So if we're expecting it from our children and our employers, we have to expect it at the top. That's why there's no trust, because there has been no accountability.
That's exactly right.
So I think the trust thing, and I've felt that a lot. And sometimes it's regardless of who's in office, right? What are the essential or maybe the most immediate ways to rebuild that trust? Draining the swamp, number one. What else?
Yeah. So can I tell you a story? A good friend of mine made this observation about federal bureaucrats once. He said, most people, when they lie to you, they'll just say, well, no, that's not what I said. Or, they'll kind of try to distract from it, or they'll try to avoid it. But our federal officials will do what toddlers do, which is when you say, hey, you did that thing, they won't try to distract from it. They'll say, no, I didn't, you did. And I'll give you an example. So I'm a baker. I don't know if you knew this. I'm a big, my son and I, my 4-year-old in particular, we like to bake a lot of stuff. So I was making cookies with him a couple weeks ago.
I'm sorry. How cute is that? I love that. Keep going. What do you bake?
Cinnamon rolls, chocolate chip scones. That's what we made in the past little bit. But we were actually making an Oreo cake. So like a cake, but had little chunks of Oreos in it. So I go to the bathroom, wash my hands, come back, and we had like 4 Oreos sitting there, and then we have 2 Oreos. Like, all right, I'm not an expert at math, but something doesn't add up here. And so I look at my 4-year-old and I said, buddy, did you eat an Oreo you weren't supposed to? He said, I didn't eat him, you did. And that's how our federal leaders lie, right? And it's like you ask people, this is why I bring this up in the context of this question is, you go to somebody at the Defense Department and say, you screwed up the withdrawal from Afghanistan. They'll say, no, it wasn't, it was you. Wait a second, we weren't in power, brother. We were nowhere near the Oval Office when these decisions were made, or the Pentagon. And this is the shamelessness. And I've seen this in the context of the Afghanistan withdrawal, which happened like 2 years after Biden and Harris took over. They would say, well, it's Donald Trump's fault. What? That's like my son saying, I didn't eat the Oreos, you did. It's the craziest thing, but this is what they do, and you've got to just be willing. What drain the swamp really means, you asked about that, what it really means is you investigate failure and you have accountability. Now sometimes people screw up, you give them a second chance, but you don't give them like a 9th chance. And what we've got to do is investigate failure again, and when people require it, fire the people who keep screwing up. That's the only way you can return government back to the people.
I call it the A word, accountability. And this is, I hope it's okay that I say this. If not, we're just going to pretend like it didn't happen.
Fine.
Right? It's not
just 1,000 closest friends.
Fine. No. Watching the debate, by the way, he put on a clinic, did he not? I mean,
thank you.
That was
fun. I had a good time.
That was amazing. I'm like, in my next life, I will be as smart as J.D. Vance and be that quick. It was amazing to watch. One of my favorite parts, there were many, but one of my favorite parts was when you got the inevitable question about how you had previously felt and talked about Donald Trump.
Yep.
And what did he say? He said, I screwed up. I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
Basically, like that's called accountability because you owned it. Yeah. And I really think that was overlooked because nobody else on the other ticket will ever admit, like, it's okay to grow. It's okay to change.
Yes, absolutely. No, and it reminds me, Sage, that so one, you're exactly right. And I actually try to make this argument to swing voters all the time. Look, you don't have to agree with everything that I say or everything that President Trump says, but he delivered peace, prosperity, rising take-home pay, and a secure border. Like, if you said in 2016 that wasn't going to happen, that's fine, but then admit that you screwed up and you got something wrong. And that's what I did. And I think that's important, is to say, oh yeah, I screwed that up. I was wrong about the guy. Also, by the way, I realized that the media lies about him to a ridiculous extent, that half the things you hear about him are straight up made up. But you know, what's so funny about this is when Biden was still running and they were trying to distract from the fact that he clearly didn't know what the hell was going on, right? And sometimes reporters would say, "Oh, well, clearly Joe Biden is not quite the same that he was in 2020." It's like, oh, that's putting it mildly. Or the same as he was 10 years ago. They'd be like, "Well, the other candidates, he's getting a little up there too. Is his memory totally perfect?" And it's like, whoa, wait. Donald Trump remembers what I tweeted about him at 9:12 p.m. in 2015, like to the word. And he still sometimes busts my chops about it, right? It's like one of the things I love about him is, we joke around with each other, but the idea, like, we have right now a person with the mental competence to do the job, and it's our guy. It's not anybody on the other team. Trust me, I know.
He will never let you live that down.
No. I talked to him 4 days ago. I talked to him every day, but a few days ago he was like, I wasn't always sure about you, JD. It's like, I understand, sir. I understand.
Yeah, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. Tell your son to get a little more creative. Like, obviously you didn't eat the Oreos. He could have blamed it on a sibling. He went to you.
Yeah,
like, let's work
right.
on this. Okay, or not. Actually,
he's only 4, so I don't know that I want him to be a better liar.
No.
Maybe I'm okay with him being a really bad liar. That's a good thing. I don't want him to be in politics.
No, yeah, exactly. Politics or mainstream media. Yeah. Trust us. Don't do it. Okay, time for one more question. One more. I could go all night, but he has places to be, things to do. One more question from Rossi. Where's Rossi?
Good evening, Senator Vance. My name is Rossi, and I'm a legal immigrant from the Dominican Republic.
Amen.
And me and my husband ended up, Jorge Lopez, we have a small business.
God love you guys. Great.
Thank you. We provide an important service to our community in our auto repair shop. And like millions of Americans, I would like to know, what would you do for small businesses?
Great. Thank you. Well, we want to do a few things. First of all, I know you don't have the microphone anymore. I'm very curious about what your business. Can we give her microphone back? Yeah, that'd be great. Could you just tell me a little bit about your business? What do you guys do?
We have a repair shop.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Or a garage.
Okay.
We repair cars.
That's wonderful.
European cars.
Okay. Good for you guys. That's great. So that's what I love about this country. You come from the Dominican Republic to repair European cars in Eastern PA. That's a hell of a country. It's a hell of a country. So one is what the biggest complaint that I hear from small businesses, whether it's repair shops or cosmetologists or small grocers. We were not too far from here actually talking to a couple of folks who started a Latino-focused grocery store about 2 years ago. It's cost. Things are way too expensive right now. It's way too hard to do business in the United States of America when everything's getting more expensive. And as much as Kamala Harris tries to run from this, and she'll say, well, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. Well, day one was 1,400 days ago. The problem is bad because she failed, and we've got to do better. Here's what we're going to do. And the first thing that we're going to do to lower costs, and it'll help small businesses, but it'll help everybody else too, is we're going to unleash Pennsylvania and American energy markets. We're going to get the cost of energy lower, because I'm sure you'd back me up, but if the cost of energy is lower, the cost of especially a car repair shop, that is a major driver of what makes it harder for people to do business. Is energy is more expensive, but that means everything is going to get less expensive because everything we make with energy. That's the number one thing. I think the second thing that we're going to do is for all small businesses is, who really loves all the regulations and the overarching bureaucracy? Big companies, because they can hire the lawyers that deal with these things. We want everybody to be able to compete at a level playing field. And when we reduce the regulations that exist in this country, I think it's going to benefit small businesses more than anybody else, because we want small businesses to be able to thrive and not have we don't want a bureaucrat knocking on your door every time you try to do something. We want to empower you to do something because that's what creates wealth and prosperity for our people. The final thing I want to say is that President Trump has proposed an incredible economic set of ideas that really rewards people who build and make and hire in the United States of America. What he said is, we're going to lower tax rates for working Americans, and that's great. But he's also said we're going to lower business taxes, but only for the businesses that are hiring American workers. We're not going to reward people for shipping jobs overseas. We're going to cut your taxes because you've got a great business right here in the United States of America. So that's the three big things that we want to do for small businesses. But I'd love to have a conversation that's, not in front of 1,000 of our friends, but I'm sure that you've got a lot of other good ideas. I'd love to hear from them. And when we're back in the White House, one thing that's going to be different is we're going to listen to people. But we're thrilled. We're thrilled you're doing what you do. We're going to try to make it easier for you. God bless you, ma'am.
And to continue to reward immigrants like Rosie, who did this the right way, who came to this country the right way, instead of rewarding people who are here illegally with, free rent, free medical care, education system, you name. I'm in New York a lot. I am shocked and devastated at what's happened to one of the greatest cities in the world.
Yep.
And I know from day one it's going to go back to how it was when he left office, because to me that's the most heartbreaking thing, is we're not giving the money to those who have done it the right way and sacrificed.
That's exactly right. I talked to it's such a good point. And we were in Tucson a couple of days ago, Tucson, Arizona, which, by the way, rally in Tucson at noon. It's 101 degrees. I'm like, what the hell are we doing here? This is a little hotter than I'm used to in Ohio. And we I know people say it's a dry heat. 101 degrees is 101 degrees. I don't care if it's dry or not. So I actually talked to a woman after our rally. And, I just sort of, kind of went on a riff during this event. And I said, look, it's so insulting, not just to American citizens whose families have been here for 10 generations, but also for American citizens who did things the right way to come here legally. Because, look, I mean, there are fees that have to get paid. There are waiting times. There's, a lot of folks are waiting 10 years, 12 years before they can even get the necessary paperwork done. And it's so insulting to let in millions upon millions of illegal aliens to reward them with free housing and medical assistance. It's insulting to the people who did it the right way. I really... And this woman, who's clearly a Latino immigrant to this country, told me she came here 25 years ago. She paid thousands of dollars in fees and legal expenses just to become an American citizen, and she is pissed off at the illegal immigration problem because it's insulting to her. And I think this is, the media, of course, says, well, this, Donald Trump's immigration policies are not compassionate. Well, they're sure as hell compassionate to newcomers who did it the right way, and they're compassionate to American citizens, and that's who our compassion should be focused on as American leaders.
And we see it on the streets of America everywhere with homeless people, with veterans who have paid their taxes. They've done everything really the right way and have hit hard times, and they need our help, not people who are doing this the wrong way, thanks to our government allowing it. My final question is this. My goodness, it's been how long? 8 weeks?
I lost count. 8-9 weeks, about that.
How often what's your average amount of sleep each night now? That's not the question, but.
Well, I mean, I don't sleep a ton. So, 5-6 hours. It's not bad. Here's the thing. You can't do a rally at like 2 a.m, right? Yeah. So nobody's going to show up to a rally at 2 a.m. unless
I bet these people will show up.
So there's only so much you can do during the day. And then, of course, like at whether it's Sunday or a school day, my 4-year-old will wake up at 6:28 a.m. promptly on the dot, ready to party. So you don't really get to sleep in.
No matter what time you get home. And I'm sorry, sidetrack. My question, and this is the final question, because to me, this is maybe maybe the most important thing, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you're going home to your beautiful wife and your babies. And as wonderful as this, I imagine, has been, life-changing, it's hard. And it's hard on the kids and the wife. What do you hope your 3 children, maybe 4, will take from this experience when they can look back, thanks to social media and technology, they can look back and see you doing this and going across the country to talk to people? What do you hope that they take from this experience with their father?
So first of all, I will say, and I appreciate the question. It's not as hard as I thought it was going to be. In part because they can travel around with us, and in part because they're so young. They're like portable. You can throw them in a suitcase and take your kids anywhere when they're that age.
Careful.
Yeah. To the media, it was a joke. I do not throw my children in suitcases. That'll be a headline, New York Times. J.D. Vance assaults children tomorrow. But they really are so portable, and they'll go anywhere, and they just love meeting people, and so it is a challenge, and I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's not, but it's not nearly as hard on the kids as I thought it would be. Here's I guess what I hope they take from it, is speaking of dry heat, we were in Scottsdale like 4 weeks ago, and it was 116 degrees, and I was carrying 2 of my 3 kids, and somebody was like, "Oh, don't worry, it's a dry heat." I was like, Kamala Harris voter. But 116 degrees, I don't care if it's dry. It's miserable. But I hope that they take an appreciation for the generosity of the American people. Of like 330 million people, we're not going to meet most of our fellow citizens. I'm probably in that rare group that gets to meet way more people than most everybody else. It's like the nature of running for vice president. And here's what I mean by this. So I met this woman, it was before a rally, I think it was in Michigan, a few weeks ago. And she came up to me, and it was sort of a photo line before we went out to the stage and took some questions from reporters. And she was talking about everything that was sort of going on in her life. And she spoke to me for about 30 seconds about food. That was the thing that she was most worried about, is the cost of groceries. And how, there are just things that she had to cut back on. There are things that she couldn't afford. And I realized, like, I'm running for vice president of the United States. This poor woman is worried about paying her grocery bills. And, having been raised in a family where we are sometimes worried about that exact thing, I felt a certain kinship towards her, because I knew exactly what she was going through, even though, I'm not going through that myself in 2024. That was like 30 seconds of the conversation, just her talking about not being able to pay for her groceries. She then spent the next 3 minutes saying that she prayed for me, she prayed for my wife, and she knew the 3 names of our kids, and she prayed for each one of them every single day. And we get choked up a little bit, but when I say appreciation for the generosity of people, I mean that I hope that my kids realize that there are people out there who can't pay for food that are praying for them every single day. And that to me is a testament to the fact that we have the greatest country and the greatest people anywhere in the world. And I hope that's what they take the most from it, because the perspective that they've gotten, you fly into Tucson, Arizona, and these, it's not a landscape. I grew up in Ohio. Everything's green and lush and there's water everywhere. But you go to Tucson, Arizona, and there are these crazy cactuses that look like they come from a painting, right? And then you come into central or eastern PA, and you see these beautiful mountains behind us. They're still green. They're kind of starting to turn, orange and red and yellow. And that's my favorite time of the year, especially in this region of the world, is fall. But the fact that you have people who are struggling to put food on the table, who still take the time to pray for, effectively a complete stranger, we have a great country, my friends. Let's go and save it together.
On that note, with the prayer, I told them earlier that I'm an Army brat and my dad went to West Point, and when we were kids, he made us memorize part of the cadet prayer.
Okay, great.
We had to recite it. So if he's watching, Dad, and I hope I get everything right, but this applies so much to what you just said, and I think what this country is going through. This is the part he made us memorize. Help us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half-truth when the whole can be won. I'm going to repeat that. The harder right, not the easier wrong. A lot of people in this country have chosen the easier wrong because it's easier.
Yes.
Chosen to not have a tough conversation because it's uncomfortable. You can go down the list, but we now know the truth, and we cannot be content any longer with a half-truth because we know what the truth is. And thanks to this man and Donald J. Trump, we can bring it back again. I have faith, and I am so grateful
Amen.
for you.
Thank you.
JD Vance.
God bless you guys. Thanks for having me.